Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama. Energetic little girl. One that's running around back here, not you. The little one. Live wire. Okay. You can't see what I'm seeing. Out there, they're having a party. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 68, the marriage of Samba. Marriage of Samba. Who is Samba? Samba. Who is Samba? He's the son of Jambavati. Krishna Jambavati. Yes? Okay. Well, because it was yesterday, seems like a long time ago. Yesterday we discussed chapter 67. Some of you were not with us for chapter 67. So we're going to do a quick review because it connects with chapter 68. Chapter 67 is Balaram slaying Dvidvida gorilla. This happened, it was narrated just after Balaram's visit to Vrindavan. And while Balaram was visiting Vrindavan, there was another event that took place in Dwarka. The other event that took place in Dwarka was Pondraka. The fellow that had an extra pair of arms pasted onto his back, claiming to be Vasudeva, and he challenged Krishna. You give up those symbols that are mine, or you do battle with me. Krishna laughed. Ugrasena and the whole assembly, Sudharma assembly hall, they laughed. Krishna said, you deliver a message back to Pondraka. I'll give him the weapons. With one of those weapons, his head will be severed from his body. And off Krishna went with his army, did battle with Pondraka. Pondraka lost. And assisting Pondraka was king of Kashi. Kashi had taken a vow before going out to do battle with Krishna, I'll bring his head back. And you can see his head, who is victor. So Krishna knew. So Krishna severed his head, and the head went flying into the city of Kashi and landed right in front of his palace. Nobody knew what that head was till they looked closely and they saw it was their king. The eldest son of the king of Kashi, his name was Sudakshina. Sudakshina. Sudakshina performed the funeral for his father and then made a vow that he would kill the person who was the cause of his father's death. So what did Sudakshina do? Because in the city of Kashi, there's a celebrated deity of Lord Shiva, and he underwent great austerity. It's still there today. Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, thousands of people come to pay their respects to that deity of Lord Shiva daily. Today, maybe it's too hot in India right now, maybe they don't go now, but generally speaking, very popular deity. So he worshipped the deity. Lord Shiva appeared. Lord Shiva asked him, what benediction would you like? He would like the means to destroy his enemy, Krishna. So what did Lord Shiva do? He told him there's a black magic mantra or worship that you can do with the assistance of brahmanas, and that the creature that arises from the fire, if you direct him to go to a person who is envious of brahmanas, then your enemy can be finished. But he knew. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmana Hitaya Cha Jagat Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. Krishna holds very dear the brahmanas and the cows. So when that fiery demon went to attack Krishna in Dwaraka, Krishna's Sudarshan Chakra sent him away, and he went screeching back to Kashi and burned up the whole city of Kashi, including Sudakshina. Black magic is something not to mess with. But while Shukadev Goswami was narrating that pastime of what Balaram did, while he was in Vrindavan, Krishna did something in Dwaraka. He wanted to hear more about Balaram. He likes Balaram. I like Balaram too. So Shukadev Goswami obliged him by telling how Balaram slayed the Vidvida gorilla. We heard some very interesting things. The Vidvida gorilla was present during Lord Ramachandra's pastimes. The Vidvida, everything all right? You're okay. You don't need to see. You want a mirror? I can put a mirror up here. It's okay. You can look on your handheld device. You can watch online, live stream, as if you're not even here. We're picking on you. Don't mind it. During Ramchandra's pastimes, there were many Vanaras and others, bears even, that took birth as sons of demigods, right? Because when the demigods had approached Lord Vishnu, help! Ravana is too much. Please do something. Don't worry, I'll advent, but before I advent, you also advent by creating offspring that can help me when I do battle with Ravana. So the demigods obliged, and many of those demigods produced Vanaras as their offspring, their children. And the Ashvini Kumaras had two sons that were brothers, and their names were Mainda and Dvidvida. There we see, there's there's Ram and Lakshman, and right behind them, Dvidvida and Mainda. They were intimate associates of Sugriva. They were ministers of Sugriva. And the two of them, were part of the group during Kishkinda Kanda that were sent in the southerly direction, headed by Angada with Hanuman and others. So they were in that assembly. They were asked how many miles could they jump, how many yojanas could they jump to reach Lanka. So they've also stated how far they could jump. They were very involved in the battle in Lanka. But before that happened, there was some misfortune. One of the greatest misfortunes is that you offend a devotee. So Dvidvita was proud of his strength, and because of his pride of his strength, he offended Lakshmana. Doesn't give the detail, but he offended Lakshmana, and that made him susceptible to when you commit offense to a Vaishnava, what happens? Inside the heart, something happens. Anartha manifests in the heart. And it's worse than sin. An offense is worse than sin. It's more difficult to remove. So because of that anartha in his heart, many, many years later, in the association of Narakasura, he became corrupted. He became a demon also. So as he became a demon, he was very, very actively engaged in disturbing, as much as he could, disturbing Krishna and Balaram and the residents of Dwarka. So he was here and there in the province of Anartha, which is different than Anartha. They sound the same, but they're not the same. It's a province that's near Dwarka, Anartha. And Raivataka mountain is in that province. The king of, anyway, Revati was Balaram's wife, right? And she was the daughter of King Raivata. And the Raivataka, so he had another name. What was his other name? Kukudmi? Right? You're not sure. Kukudmi. Balaram's wife was named Revati, and her father's name was Kukudmi, but another name because he was the king of Raivata. He was King Raivata. And so that's where the Vidvita was. He was disturbing everybody left and right. We heard some details. And at a certain point of time, he saw Lord Balaram. He heard some singing, and that meant there's some people enjoying, so he came to disturb them. Balaram was singing amidst a crowd of young women, including Revati. And so he started harassing them, doing this and that and this and that. And it started escalating, and there was a battle between Dvidvita and Balaram. Guess who won? No problem. Balaram won. But it was an enjoyable battle. With his bare hands, the furious lord of the Yadavas hammered a blow upon Dvidvita's collarbone. The ape collapsed, vomiting blood. So that was the end of Dvidvita and the end of chapter 66. Now we're on chapter 67. Shukadeva Goswami begins this chapter 67. O king, Jambavati's son, Samba, ever victorious in battle, kidnapped Duryodhana's daughter. Duryodhana's daughter. Duryodhana is a bad guy, but his daughter was different. And Samba was very attracted to her, so during her Swayamvar ceremony, he came scooping in and kidnapped her. So here's a description of Lakshmana. She was very qualified, of marriageable age, the daughter of Duryodhana, and from the high lineage of the Kuru dynasty. Samba is the meaning of his name. Amba means mother, and Sa Amba means he who is very dear to his mother. So Samba, Sa Amba, Samba. He was a powerful warrior. He also was high parentage, Krishna and Jambavati's son. So one of his names is Jambavati Sutta. Harivangsha. What's Harivangsha? Does anybody know what Harivangsha is? Harivangsha is a sequel to Mahabharata. It's an extension or compendium, or it's a final section of Mahabharata that describes the glories of Hari. Harivangsha. Harivangsha says, when Pradumna, as a baby, was taken by the abductor Shambara. So we're going back to chapter 55. Chapter 55 comes after 54. 52, 53, and 54 were the marriage of Rukmini. And then the very next chapter is the birth of Pradumna, their son, Krishna and Rukmini's son. So in that chapter 55 is described where he was born, and then before 10 days passed, he was abducted by a demon. It's a long story. At the same time, Samba was born, or shortly after. So they're about the same age. Samba, the son of Jambavati, and Pradumna, the son of Rukmini, about the same age. Since Pradumna and Samba were thus almost the same age, the incident told now, way over here in chapter 67, actually happened right after chapter 55. Why was it narrated so long after the event? Shukadeva Goswami's spontaneous mood at this moment is glorification of the prowess of Balaram. Remember? Shukadev, Maharaj Parikshit wanted to hear, and Shukadev wanted to describe the glories of Balaram. So it's described later. It wasn't. So in other words, the Bhagavatam is not necessarily chronological. It's very spontaneous, and according to the mood of the speaker and the mood of the listener, it flows. It flows very wonderfully. Jambavati had prayed for a son as beautiful as Pradumna. And so that tells us Samba was also very, very charming in his appearance. When Krishna performed austerities, to glorify the great devotee Shiva, Samba was born. Doesn't give the detail. No. We also know the previous chapters was Lord Shiva honoring Krishna, because Lord Shiva was the worshipable deity of Banasura. And when Krishna chopped the arms of Banasura, Lord Shiva came and offered his prayers, etc., etc. But at the same time, going back to Vrindavan, some of you like Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. We all like Krishna's Vrindavan pastimes. One of those pastimes was the occasion of a big serpent swallowing Nanda Maharaj. You know that pastime? Vidyadhara had been cursed to become a serpent. And the occasion, the circumstance was Shivaratri. And so the residents of Vrindavan, they never leave Vrindavan, but in the northern direction, in the extended parts of Vrindavan area, was a temple of one of the forms of Parvati, Ambika, temple of Ambika. So they went there to observe Shivaratri. And that's where um, Nanda Maharaj was being swallowed by the serpent at night when they were sleeping, because they were some distance from their home. So the point is, Krishna performed activities. We heard Krishna performed activities when he was in Dwarka. We heard one chapter was his daily activities. And he worshipped the devas. He performed rituals. He performed yagyas. He engaged brahmanas, to assist him in those types of worship. He was, because the Vedas come from Krishna, and a very large portion of the Vedas is the Karmakanda section of the Vedas. In that Karmakanda section of the Vedas, it's worship of devas. Although Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita it's meant for the less intelligent. Nonetheless, Krishna did to show by example. So, here we have, from Harivamsa, Krishna performed austerities to glorify his great devotee, Lord Shiva. At that time, Samba was born. Just as Jambavati was dear to Krishna, Krishna was very affectionate to her son, Samba. So there's a very special bond, Krishna and Samba. So what happened? Samba wanted to kidnap Jambavati at her Swayamvar, and so in fact he did. The angry Kurus said, the ill-behaved boy, this kind of pejorative term because he's not a boy, but the ill-behaved boy has offended us, forcibly kidnapping our unmarried daughter against her will. Because the description is, Samba wanted to marry her and she didn't necessarily wanted to marry him. It was her Swayamvar, she was to select her husband, and he came and scooped her up. So they're very angry. Commentary says, Samba was called the boy because he was disrespectful and proud, by their estimation. If you sit over there, you won't be able to see the screen, but you can sit over there if you like. There's a thing I've noticed here in Atlanta, and people, not everybody, but some people come late. There's a good number of people that come late. It's part of the program of living in Atlanta, you come late. Some people. Huh? No. Where people that know me, I start on time. But you should, get used to it. If I come back again, when we say such and such, it means such and such. If you come late, you come late. But I'm going to start when it's time. I know the Indian Standard Time. I'm telling you what my standard time is. If it starts at this time, it starts at this time. If you're not here, Haribol. Get used to it, Prabhus. Okay. The Kurus are now speaking harshly about the Vrishnis and Yadavas, the residents of Dwarka. If the Vrishnis come here when they learn that their son has been captured, we will break their pride. Thus, they'll become subdued, like bodily senses brought under strict control. Like, chivalrous talk. Samba wanted the daughter of Duryodhana, Lakshmana, although, this is Prabhupada in Krishna book, although she was not inclined to have him. Therefore, Samba kidnapped Lakshmana by force from the Swayamvar ceremony. After saying this and having their plan sanctioned by senior members, who are the senior members? This is Hastinapur, and grandfather Bhishma is thus senior member, and another, Vidura, the two. They sanctioned by the senior members of the Kuru dynasty, Karna, Shala, Bhuri, Yagnaketu, and Suyodhana set out to attack Samba. This is the footnote. Bhishma even not only sanctioned, but he went to accompany them. Here's the explanation. Bhishma, this is Vishwanath. The Sanskrit is Kuru Vridha. Vridha means like respected or elder respected person. Kuru Vridha and Vidura gave their permission since Samba has touched this maiden already, he must be the husband, for it would be improper to marry her to anyone else. To show our bravery and his impropriety, however, we should capture him but not kill him. And actually, they approved for a different reason. Actually, they approved because they wanted to show that the Kauravas were falsely proud. They wanted to show it. So off they went. All these generals, seeing Duryodhana and his companions rushing toward him, Samba, great chariot fighter, took up his splendid bow and stood alone like a lion. Remember, he's a great fighter. Determined to capture him, the angry bowmen, led by Karna, there he is, Karna, shouted at Samba, stand and fight, stand and fight. They came straight for him and showered him with arrows. Twanging his wonderful bow, heroic Samba struck with arrows the 6 warriors, headed by Karna. He pierced the 6 chariots with as many arrows. That means 6 arrows. Each team of 4 horses with 4 arrows, and each chariot driver with a single arrow. And he similarly struck the great bowmen who commanded the chariots. He's a powerful fighter. The enemy warriors congratulated Samba for this display of prowess. There's some nice illustrations. There's Samba doing his thing, fighting heroically. Prabhupada writes, while Samba was so diligently fighting alone with the 6 warriors, they all appreciated the inconceivable potency of the boy. Even in the midst of fighting, they admitted frankly that this boy Samba was wonderful. Prabhupada's comment. However, because it was the internal potency at work, he was captured. Harivangsha says, from childhood Samba had been trained by Balaram. He was respected by Balaram and all the Vrishnis. By his nature, he was an astounding boy. But they forced him down from his chariot, and thereupon 4 of them struck his 4 horses. 1 of them struck down his chariot driver, and another broke his bow. Now, this is illegal. In military rules, 6 generals ganging up on 1 young man. They did it with Abhimanyu, right? That's like a no-no. They broke the rules. It's sinful. They just broke the rules. It's sinful. Having deprived Samba of his chariot during the fight, the Kuru warriors tied him up with great difficulty and then returned victorious to their city, taking the young boy and their princess. Now, they didn't kill him, but, he's touched their daughter, so what are they going to do? That's it. The victory of the Kurus was by the will of the Lord, Jiva Goswami writes. for particular pastimes, just as Aniruddha was captured only by the will of the Lord. Aniruddha, who is Aniruddha the son of? Pradyumna. So he's Krishna's grandson, and he was captured. Who was Aniruddha captured by? Banasura, the father of Usha. It's a nice story. So Aniruddha was captured, Samba was captured by the will of the Lord because there was a pastime to be enacted. Karna and other warriors returned to the palace with captive Samba and freed Lakshmana, that is, freed from Samba's kidnap. Now, this illustration goes way back from when Hridayananda Maharaj was translating Mahabharata, because it's in several places. But these are line drawings that were done when that project was going on. Narada Muni comes to the rescue. O king, when the Yadavas heard news of this from Sri Narada, what's the news? Samba was arrested, and improperly so by 6 warriors. They became angry, urged on by King Ugrasena, not by Krishna, because he knew what Balaram's intention was. Balaram's going to come into action. They prepared for war. Samba's been arrested. 6 generals ganged up on him to arrest him. War. Balaram is a peacemaker. Balaram, however, cooled the tempers of the Vrishni heroes who had already put on their armor. He who purifies the age of quarrel did not want a quarrel between the Kurus and Vrishnis. Thus, accompanied by brahmanas and family elders, he went to Hastinapur on his chariot, which was as effulgent as the sun. As he went, he appeared like the moon, surrounded by the ruling planets. It's a very different painting of Balaram, but he's going off to battle. Or actually, he's going on a peace mission. He said, wait, don't, no wars. Let me see if I can make, I have a relationship with Duryodhana. I think I can bring a nice peaceful settlement. All right, you can try. We're ready for battle if you don't succeed. Upon arriving at Hastinapur, Lord Balaram remained in a garden outside the city and sent Uddhava. Uddhava has lots of missions like this. Messenger on behalf of Balaram this time, ahead to probe King Dhritarashtra's intentions. So Uddhava went. Dhritarashtra's meaning, having a kingdom. His desire for the kingdom was the cause of the foolishness of Duryodhana and others. There's Dhritarashtra, the blind king, poor fellow, desiring a kingdom. After he had offered proper respects to the son of Ambika, or Dhritarashtra, Ambika, the son of Ambika, right? Yeah. Ambika, Amba. Okay. You're all learned devotees here. It's not like the Sunday feast. We had some new people. I had to be really careful. Okay. Amba, Ambika, and Ambalika. So Ambika was the mother of Dhritarashtra. After he had offered proper respects to the son of Ambika and to Bhishma, Drona, Balika, and Duryodhana, Uddhava informed them that Lord Balaram had arrived. They were very happy. He's one of their favorites. Overjoyed to hear that Balaram, their dearmost friend, had come, they first honored Uddhava and then went forth to meet the Lord, carrying auspicious offerings in their hands. Big entourage went out to greet because he's off there in some garden outside the city. They approached Lord Balaram and worshipped him with gifts of cows and arghya, as was fitting. Those among the Kurus who understood his true power, however, bowed down to him, touching their heads to the ground. Even the elders, like Bhishma Dev, also bowed down to Lord Baladev. After both parties had heard that their relatives were doing well, and both had inquired into each other's welfare and health, the formalities and cordialities were exchanged. Lord Balaram forthrightly spoke to the Kurus as follows. King Ugrasena is our master and the ruler of kings. With undivided attention, you should hear what he has ordered you to do, and then you should do it at once. Very firm. King Ugrasena had said, even though by irreligious means several of you defeated a single opponent who follows the religious codes, still I am tolerating this for the sake of unity among family members. Now, many persons fighting a single person is a dharma. It's irreligious. The implied meaning is not explicit, but implicit. Ugrasena implies that the Kurus should immediately bring Samba and present him to Lord Balaram. It was a quick message. They didn't like it. They had no intention of turning over Samba to Balaram. Upon hearing these words of Lord Baladev, which were full of potency, courage, and strength, and were appropriate to his transcendental power, the Kauravas became furious and spoke as follows. They started saying insulting things in general, and then they started insulting Balaram. Big mistake. Big mistake. The Kuru nobles said, "Oh, how amazing this is! The force of time is indeed insurmountable. A lowly shoe now wants to climb on the head that bears the royal crown." Here the Kurus indicate that the fallen age of Kali had indeed already begun, this is from the purport, since they claim that now, quote, the shoe wants to climb on the head that bears the royal crown. In other words, they thought that the lowly Yadus now wanted to rise above the royal Kurus. So more insulting words. It is because these Vrishnis are bound to us by marital ties that we have granted them equality, allowing them to share our beds, seats, and meals. Indeed, it is we who have given them their royal thrones. Now, this is before the Kurukshetra battle. No longer shall the Yadus be allowed to use these royal symbols. It's Karna and Duryodhana, which now cause trouble for those who gave them, like milk fed to poisonous snakes. Having prospered by our grace, these Yadavas have now lost all shame and are daring to command us. How would even Indra dare usurp anything that Bhishma, Drona, Arjuna, or any other Kurus have given him? It would be like a lamb claiming the lion's kill. So, chivalrous words. Balaram didn't like it. O best of the Bharatas, after the arrogant Kurus, thoroughly puffed up by the opulence of their high birth and relations, had spoken these harsh words to Lord Balaram, they turned and went back to their city. Without politeness, turning their backs to him, they entered the city quickly. Bhishma and some others remained, however. The plot thickens. Seeing the bad character of the Kurus and hearing their nasty words, the infallible Lord Balaram became filled with rage. It's like Krishna. When Krishna went to enter Mathura, he wanted the boys to be attired properly. If you remember, it's just like deity worship. First, they took their bath in the river Jamuna, and then they wanted to get some. So after bathing a deity, you put some clothing on the deity. So they went to the washerman of the king and requested, "My dear sir, you're very polite. If you kindly will give some garments to these boys so they can enter the city properly attired." And he said something harsh and nasty, and Krishna takes that more seriously than even something said to him. So these words were spoken about Balaram's beloved associates, the Vrishnis and the Yadavas. So he can't tolerate that. He's really strong. I mean, he doesn't tolerate. It's Balaram is the original guru, and he doesn't tolerate this kind of thing. His countenance frightful to behold, he laughed repeatedly and spoke as follows. Balaram said, "Clearly the many passions of these scoundrels have made them so proud that they do not want peace," because he came on a peace mission. Very simple. "Then let them be pacified by physical punishment, as animals are with a stick." Only gradually was I able to calm the furious Yadus and Lord Krishna, who was also enraged. Desiring peace for these Kauravas, I came here, but they are so dull-headed, fond of quarrel, and mischievous by nature, that they have repeatedly disrespected me. Out of conceit, they dared address me with harsh words. King Ugrasena, the lord of the Bhojas, Vrishnis and Andakas, is not fit to command when Indra and the other planetary rulers obey his orders. That same Krishna, who occupies the Sudharma assembly hall and, for his enjoyment, took the Parijata tree from the immortal demigods, that very Krishna is indeed not fit to sit on a throne. The image here is from that story of after killing Narakasura, Krishna with Satyabhama went to the heavenly realms to bring back the earrings of Aditi that Narakasura had stolen, and they requested the Parijata tree. Balaram expresses how they indirectly insulted Krishna in 3 verses. So finished. The goddess of fortune herself, ruler of the entire universe, worships his feet, and the master of the goddess of fortune does not deserve the paraphernalia of a mortal king? The dust of Krishna's lotus feet, which is the source of holiness for all places of pilgrimage, is worshipped by all the great demigods. The principal deities of all planets are engaged in his service, and they consider themselves most fortunate to take the dust of the lotus feet of Krishna on their crowns. Great demigods, Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, and even the goddess of fortune and I, are simply parts of his spiritual identity. And we also carefully carry that dust on our heads. And still Krishna is not fit to use the royal insignia or even sit on the royal throne? Ooh. These insulting words have infuriated Balaram. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the place of pilgrimage, especially referred to here, is the Ganges River. The Ganges water is inundating the whole world, and since it is emanating from Krishna's lotus feet, its banks have turned into great places of pilgrimage. We Vrishnis enjoy only whatever small parcel of land the Kurus allow us, and we are indeed shoes, whereas the Kurus are the head. Just see how these puffed up Kurus are intoxicated with their so-called power, like ordinary drunken men. What actual ruler with the power to command would tolerate their foolish, nasty words? Commentary. A ruler cannot tolerate these words, otherwise there would be no control. So he decides, "Today I shall rid the earth of the Kauravas," declared the furious Balaram. He took his plow weapon and rose up as if to set the three worlds ablaze. The Lord angrily dug up Hastinapur, which became separated from the earth, with the tip of his plow and began to drag it, intending to cast the entire city into the Ganges. This has a lot of paintings. It's a celebrated event. You probably recognize this one. There's his plow, and he's dragging the whole of Hastinapur over to that side where the Ganges is, and everything is topsy-turvy. It's a Pushkar painting. Here's a close-up of the same painting. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, "By the Lord's desire, his plow had increased in size, and that as Balaram began dragging Hastinapur toward the water, he ordered the Ganges, except for Samba, you should attack and kill everyone in the city with your water." Seeing that the city was trembling, about like a raft at sea, as it was being dragged away, and that it was about to fall into the Ganges, the Kauravas became terrified. Uh-oh, we made a big mistake. To save their lives, they approached the Lord for shelter, taking their families with them, placing Samba and Lakshmana in front. They joined their palms in supplication. Commentary says, Balaram was not worried about Samba falling into the water. He pulled the city only to scare them. The Kauravas said, "Oh, Rama, Rama, foundation of everything. We know nothing of your power. Please excuse our offense, for we are ignorant and misguided. Since we did not know your powers, and since you are merciful to the fallen, you should not consider our offense." That's commentary. You alone caused the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the cosmos, and of you there is no prior cause. Indeed, O Lord, authorities say that the worlds are mere playthings for you as you perform your pastimes. In the Narayana Dhyatma, it is said, the creation of the Lord does not depend on a goal. He does this simply out of bliss, like the dancing of a madman. O unlimited one of 1,000 heads, that's Anantashesh at the bottom of the universe, holding up the universe. As your pastime, you carry this earthly globe upon one of your heads. At the time of annihilation, you withdraw the entire universe within your body and, remaining all alone, lie down to rest. During the daily destruction after Brahma's day, the universe remains protected within your form as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, because we know from Chaitanya Charitamrita there's 5 expansions of Balaram, and Garbhodakshay Vishnu is one of those 5. There's Anantashesh holding up the earth on his hoods. Your anger is meant for instructing everyone. It is not a manifestation of hatred or envy. O Supreme Lord, you sustain the pure mode of goodness, and you become angry only to maintain and protect the world, which is true. The Kurus admit that Lord Balaram's anger was entirely appropriate and in fact was meant for their benefit. Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur comments, because you exhibited this anger, we have now become civilized. Whereas previously we were wicked and could not see you, blinded as we were by pride. By your kindness, you removed our pride. Further commentary. What type, it's not right, what type the anger? What type was his anger? The purpose of Balaram's anger was to maintain respect for rules of conduct. Because you exhibited such anger, we are now obedient. So Balaram is being praised properly. We bow down to you, O soul of all beings, O wielder of all potencies, O tireless maker of the universe. Offering you obeisances, we take shelter of you. Thus propitiated by the Kurus, whose city was trembling, and who were surrendering to him in great distress, Lord Balaram became very calm and kindly disposed toward them. Do not be afraid, he said, and took away their fear. Just poof. The Supreme Lord, chief of the Yadavas, accepted all the gifts and then departed with Krishna's son, Samba, and daughter-in-law, Lakshmana, as his well-wishers bid him farewell. So there he goes. There's Balaram in the chariot with Samba and Lakshmana. She looks pretty happy. Duryodhana's dowry to his daughter Lakshmana. Vishwanath writes, 1,260-year-old elephants, 60-year-old elephants, 120,000 horses, 6,000 golden chariots, and 1,000 maidservants with jeweled lockets on their necks. Then Lord Hala Yudha entered his city. What's the meaning of hala? Plow. And yudha? Fighting. So he would sometimes use his plow for fighting. Hala dara or hala yudha. And met his relatives, whose hearts were all bound to him with loving attachment. In the assembly hall, he reported to the Yadu leaders everything about his dealings with the Kurus. The story's about to end. Even today, the city of Hastinapur is visibly elevated on its southern side along the Ganges, thus showing the signs of Lord Balaram's prowess. Lord Balaram ki jai. Now this is narrated at the request of Maharaj Pariksit because he wanted to hear from Shukadev Goswami more. I want to hear more. I want to hear more about the prowess of Balaram. It wasn't enough his visit to Vrindavan and his killing of Dvidvida. He wanted to hear more and more. See, he plays a very important role in Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, in Krishna's pastimes in Mathura, and Krishna's pastimes especially in Dwarka. One of his characteristics, we mentioned this several times already, he liked being a peacemaker. And he was pretty effective because if they didn't comply, they had to face his plow. But he was effective. He likes doing that service. And sometimes he likes doing things that look contrary to what Krishna wants, because it increases the chivalrous rasa. So then Krishna has to be clever and find ways around what Balaram wants. What's an example of that? Marriage of Subhadra. Do you know the story of the marriage of Subhadra? No? You know who is Subhadra? Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra? Subhadra is the younger sister of Vasudeva and Devaki. It was her mother. And so he was the younger sister, Krishna and Balaram. And when they were living in Dwarka, the elder brother was Balaram, and he had a different desire than what Subhadra wanted. Subhadra became attracted to Arjuna. There's a nice description of this in the Bhagavatam. But Balaram had a different idea. What was his different idea? Duryodhana. Marry Duryodhana? Because Balaram had a friendship. This is one of those you can't understand it things. How did Balaram like Duryodhana? Because Duryodhana had animosity toward Krishna and the Pandavas. So how could Balaram make friendship with Duryodhana and want his sister to marry Duryodhana? Anyway, it was to increase rasa. So the arrangement was made for Arjuna to scoop her up and take her away. And Balaram was furious. This is insulting. But he didn't gather his armies right away. He went to ask Krishna. What did Krishna say? Well, this is very good. What? It's insulting. He's kidnapped our sister. Said, yes, but this in Kshatriya life, this is very favorable. When a young marriageable woman is taken forcibly by a Kshatriya, this is very good. And besides that, if there's a marriage between the Pandavas and the core of and our kingdom. This is very, very. It's gathers strength for our kingdom. Very good. So not only you shouldn't take your armies and go chase him, you should chase him and bring him back and have the marriage right here in Dwarka. So Subhadra married Arjuna, and they had a big festival. Then came when Arjuna came back to Indraprastha to inform Draupadi. She was insulted. It's very interesting. She was thinking, "Oh, you like someone more than me?" And Arjuna had to do what Arjuna was good at doing. When Draupadi saw the qualities in Subhadra, she was completely happy. There was whatever rivalry was there was gone. She's very qualified. So, Balaram played an important role in Krishna's pastimes in many, many, many different ways. Many, many, many different ways. He plays a pretty important role in our Hare Krishna mantra, doesn't he? Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Strength. Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, this is Canto 10, Chapter 2, but it's, Chapter 2 of Krishna book. In order to be successful in spiritual life, you have to have strength. But not physical strength, spiritual strength. And spiritual strength comes from Balaram. So pray to Balaram for spiritual strength so you can be successful in spiritual life. And hearing his pastimes helps appreciate his nature, his loving ways, his unlimited strength, very clever arrangements, and how quickly he became pacified. After all those insulting words, he very quickly became pacified. Very quickly. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion. We've been having some lively discussion. This is my final evening here in Atlanta. So let's see if we get some discussion going this evening.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the Nectarian class. I just had one question, Maharaj. Prabhupada, you showed that Prabhupada said that Lakshmana was not willing to take the hand of Samba, but then at the end it seemed like she voluntarily went with Samba. So how do we take that?
Well, she voluntarily went because she was not yet officially married, but she couldn't be married to anybody else. She had accepted Samba as her husband.
Thank you, Maharaj. And one more question, if I may follow up on that. Is Samba any partial expansion like how Pradyumna, Aniruddha are? Is Samba any partial expansion?
What I recall is that Krishna's sons were as powerful as Krishna. Now, it doesn't mean that they're Vishnu Tattva, but they're invested with powers like Krishna's powers. They were as powerful as Krishna. So, it's a little different with Aniruddha and Pradyumna, but the other sons that were powerful, Samba is one, invested with powers that were powerful like Krishna. Okay.
So Maharaja, I've read that Balaram was actually against the Kurukshetra war and Krishna wanted it, and so
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why Balram walked away.
Yeah, he didn't want battle. He didn't want battle between the two families. He was peacemaker. I mean, that was an external. The internal was, since I'm not going to be here, I'll go on pilgrimage. And he went to purify the holy places by going on pilgrimage. And other things. Meeting the speaker of the Bhagavatam, the speaker of the Puranas, Sutta Goswami's father. Romaharshan. So there's other pastimes that were purposeful, but on the external surface, he didn't want, and like just like that specifically it said, when this thing came up, he didn't want a war between the Kauravas and the Vrishnis. He wanted peace. He was a peacemaker. He likes. When it became clear that wasn't going to happen, yes, because Krishna wanted it. Why did Krishna want it? To relieve the burden of the earth of demoniac kings. So Balarama was taking that position for, one can say, for Leela purposes. Our acharyas take, there are two examples where Balaram apparently became bewildered. The circumstances in Krishna's, in Vrindavan pastimes, he became bewildered when Krishna was in the mouth of the Bakasura. But he wasn't bewildered when Krishna was in the coils of Kaliya. So at different times, although it looked like Krishna was in danger, at different times he would be just quite normal, and other times he would be bewildered. Or another example our acharyas like to refer to is during the 1 year that Krishna was manifesting himself as the cowherd boys and calves, Balaram didn't understand what was going on. He's omniscient. So for Leela purposes, even Balaram can be influenced. Even Krishna can be influenced by his own Leela Shakti. And he's amazed at, wow, my potencies are amazing. So it can happen for such a reason, for Leela purposes. And how many circumstances were there where Balaram took an opposite position, like he did with the marriage of their sister? It's not many, but in some cases he would take an opposite position for Leela purposes. That's kind of like, hey, that's clever. You can say that about anything. But, it's actually how it happened. Because his primary mood is just serving Krishna in every possible way. So that's one of the every possible ways, is apparently being in opposition so Krishna can do a workaround. And cleverly arrange for Subhadra to marry Arjun. After checking it out, she wanted to marry Arjun. Arjun wanted to marry her. Okay, good enough. So he figured out a clever way around Balaram. It gives, Krishna, it creates situations where he can then become clever and figure a way that it becomes very nice. Happens all the time in Vrindavan pastimes. So even with Balaram. Duryodhana. Very.
So the second question I had, Maharaj, was that when Brahma Mohan Leela happens, at that time Balram is having his birthday, right? So he doesn't go.
Yes.
And that Leela ends 1 year after. That's also his birthday, right?
Well, you say birthday. I don't recall it as being his birthday. There was something auspicious to attend to, but I don't know if it was his birthday. So I can look. I don't remember it that it was his birthday because birthday's a big deal. That's
Right.
Balaram's parents' day, but I don't know if it was that day.
So my question was that during that 1 year,
Yeah.
when Krishna was the calves, the cowherd boys.
Yes.
So was Balram aware
No.
of it, or was he?
Specifically, our acharyas say, towards the end of the year, he started noticing things. And then he put two and two together and he asked Krishna, "Is this what's going on?" Krishna smiled. So Krishna had drawn back the curtain of Yogamaya so he could get a glimpse. But Yogamaya was covering him for the most of that year. He didn't detect anything. By Krishna's Leela potencies. Anything else?
Maharaj, one online question by Preeti Vilasni Mataji. This question is from the Paundraka Leela. Paundraka was king of Karusha province,
Yes.
and so was Dantavakra. Are they related?
No. I mentioned this. Dantavakra's kingdom was in Madhya Pradesh. And there were two kingdoms that had the same name. Just like there are many cities or places in India today that have the same. How many Vidyadharas? Excuse me. Uh, what's the term that means the town of knowledge? Vijayanagara. Vijayanagara. There's lots of Vijayanagaras in India. How many? So many. So there's two Kurushas. Something back there?
Question about Samba. Srimad Bhagavatam, third canto, first chapter, third verse says about Samba's appearance. He exactly resembles the son of personality of Godhead.
He exactly resembled the?
Son of personality of Godhead.
Yes.
In the previous birth, he was born as Kartikeya in the womb of wife of Lord Shiva. Now he has been born in the womb of Jambavati, most enriched wife of Krishna.
Okay. An empowered jiva. Anything else? Yes. Can you press the button so the volume is on? Thank you.
Thank you, Maharaj. If you can please elaborate a little bit on Balram is eternal spiritual master. He's the Adi Guru.
Would you like to? You sounds like you know a lot about it. No? You can read in Chaitanya Charitamrita all about it. The tattva, Guru tattva, is resting upon Balaram. So those who are performing the service of Guru are doing so on behalf of, are invested with the powers of Balaram. Of course, powers of Balaram can be given and can be withdrawn, but the power of Guru Tattva comes from Balaram. He is the original. It's said that when Krishna is speaking Bhagavad Gita, it's that feature of Krishna that is speaking Bhagavad Gita. Very mischievous boy. Very good. Now, there's something in Chaitanya Charitamrita that adds that the Guru may also be representative or empowered by Srimati Radharani, but the general understanding is Balaram is the original Guru. That's that feature that he gives knowledge about Krishna. So the Vedas give knowledge about Krishna, but the Vedas are in the feminine and he is in the masculine position. Gives knowledge about Krishna. He wants to reveal Krishna to others. That's the Guru function. Something else? Who has the microphone? You have something? No? Okay, looks like we're done. Srila Prabhupada ki